Has the Prime Minister taken away that immunity and kicked the diplomat out of Canada?
No government of any stripe would see a direct threat on a member of this Parliament and their family and sit on it.
But unfortunately, what we've learned is that is exactly what this Prime Minister did.
That is simply not true.
What will the Prime Minister commit to doing to make sure this never happens again?
When was the Public Safety Minister or his office first made aware that a PRC diplomat, Mr. Wei Zhou, was targeting me or my family?
For the second day in a row, allegations of elections interference are dominating debate in the House of Commons. You could hear it there. The back and forth really centers around Tory MP Michael Chong. The Globe and Mail reports, citing CSIS intelligence from 2021, Chong and his family were targeted by China's intelligence service and that a Chinese diplomat working in Canada was involved. The opposition wants that diplomat expelled. The Prime Minister says the feds are taking the allegations seriously and will investigate them. Is that enough, though? Let's bring in the front bench to talk about that. With me tonight, former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant. He's the CEO now of Space Canada. Former Conservative Deputy Leader Lisa Raitt is here. She's the Vice Chair and Managing Director of Global Investment Banking at CIBC. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is with us, as is the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie. Hi, everybody. Good to see you tonight. Thanks for making the time. Just as we've been on air, the Globe and Mail also reports that Michael Chong, Tom, CSIS has confirmed to him that intelligence did, in fact, is true, that it did happen, that he and his family were targeted. We have spent a number of weeks talking as a panel about whether or not this stuff is cutting through, it's making a difference. What do you think about this particular story? Is it?
I think that we've hit a critical mass now, whether it's the events around the Trudeau Foundation and what we learned from the person who stepped down. She was the president and CEO, and she stepped down because the people who had been there since the beginning, all very close to the Liberals and the Trudeaus, they refused to recuse themselves, and she stepped down and 8 other board members resigned. And this was over, of course, money that had been given by people who were close to the Chinese Communist Party. We've known about Chinese government interference in our elections, but Trudeau has refused to do anything about it. We had Katie Telford go to committee and refuse to answer any questions. So, of course, the suspicions are building, and it doesn't wash for Trudeau just to sit there today and say, oh, you know, I'd never do that, and you have to believe me, and what you're saying just isn't true. It's not working, and nobody believes the government anymore on this, and I think that that's the credibility gap that exists for Trudeau right now. These are huge issues. He's handed it over to David Johnston, who occupied a major role at the Trudeau Foundation just before getting that nomination by Trudeau. We're supposed to find out in a couple of weeks, Vassy, whether or not we're going to get a full-blown commission of inquiry. I think it's inevitable. But I think that there's quite a bit of damage right now, and I think the average Canadian is paying attention. And by the way, Michael Chong is just such an exceptional MP. We were on different teams, but I went to any number of events with him, and he's just a delightful person, a sterling MP, and he's brought positive change to how caucuses, for example, are managed and respected, and the role of individual MPs. So it's galling that Mr. Trudeau is still trying to just wash his hands of this. Oh, well, we didn't really know anything, and what you're saying isn't true. It's not working.
Well, even that is what I find so kind of confusing in a way, Lisa, because, look, I take the point that I can't imagine that a prime minister of any party would know this and not tell people, or try to keep that information. But then why not directly say, I didn't know? Like, that is so, he was asked so many times, I've asked so many representatives from his government, and no one will provide a clear answer on that. And I don't get why not, unless it's not true.
Well, then you need an inquiry. I mean, if you're not getting to the bottom of the answers, and if they're not getting to the bottom of the answers in Parliament, I mean, I'd like to know how the Speaker of the House feels about this, because this is something of a parliamentary nature. Michael Chong has asked that they find the government, the Chinese government, in contempt of Parliament, which it is. Michael Chong has 3 kids and a beautiful wife, and they live just up the road from me here in the Halton region. And to think that his family is finding out about this through a Globe and Mail report. His kids are old enough to read the paper. They're on Twitter. They're going to see this information come in even before Michael from Ottawa gets to try to explain it to them. This is incredibly upsetting. This is wholly disgusting, is the word I'm going to give it. And if this is by any means, even the slightest bit of political calculation in a run-up to a federal election, well, then it's game over for this government. It's just got to be game over. That cannot be stood for.
I think to kind of to that point, Brian, and to be fair to the government, let's say they did just find out, even though they haven't been forthright about that. I feel like the clock is also ticking on determining what course of action you're going to take and determining whether or not that intelligence is actually proof of something. And you've got to make a call pretty quick about if you're going to expel that diplomat or not, if you're going to take recourse against China, if you're going to summon the ambassador. Like if any part of that is true, I feel like the window to act is a pretty narrow one.
I totally agree. And let me also add to what Lisa said. I mean, when I saw the reports, you can't help but think of the family, obviously, as I'm sure all Canadians that heard this story have been doing. And when a politician, when somebody runs for office, we choose to do that. Three of us on this panel chose to do that in our lives. Our family and our friends support us in doing it, but sometimes maybe a little reluctantly. Sometimes they do it out of love, but it's not necessarily because practically it's fun for them. And this is just a reminder that it can affect families, and it's very unfortunate news, to say the least. On your point, Vassy, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, look, the Prime Minister was pretty straightforward, I think, in his response, saying no one would do that. I mean, obviously, he was pretty strong, I thought, in making it clear that he thought that would be the insinuation that he would know this information and not pass on or not ask that the member be briefed was, I think, pretty strong when he was refuting Poilievre's accusations. But to your point, that's fine. But and if it's obviously, I tend to believe it's the truth. I agree with the point. So if that is the case, though, he should act. And now that CSIS has confirmed to MP Chong that the intelligence is accurate, then certainly I would hope that Trudeau, from a policy point of view, will do something quickly, him and his government, but also from a political point of view, because to Tom's point, this is yet another sort of mark on this issue. I'm not as sort of at the same point as Tom is on this, but I do think it definitely brings it all up. I again, if I'm the Liberals and I'm on the Trudeau government, might be hoping that the inquiry is actually asked, because they need to clear a lot of points now, and frankly, they would need that type of robust process to most likely have Canadians say, okay, we got looked into, we found out everything, let's move on.
I feel like, especially in this case, Rob, and let me know what you think, that there have been many allegations over the past number of months, but this set of them, they're so specific, and they're about an MP who, yes, is a Conservative, but is probably one of the least partisan, MPs on Parliament Hill, right? He's pretty civil to, like, he has his partisan stripes for sure, but he's a very civil person. I think there isn't an MP from any party who wouldn't acknowledge that. And so my instinct tells me that if you weren't to act in that narrow window, if the evidence is there, there actually would be consequences, both politically and pragmatically.
Exactly, Vassy. And even if it was an MP who is not as universally well regarded as Mr. Chong is, and he is very widely respected by journalists, parliamentarians from all stripes, because he's a fundamentally decent guy, and Pitt seems to put principle and Parliament above politics a lot of the time. And I think that's what's so troubling. His family in Hong Kong, of course, must be very frightened when they read this Globe story by Bob Fife and Stephen Chase, because thinking, what's next? I mean, are we in danger because of the actions of our relative back in Canada? And I agree. The window is very, very small for the Prime Minister to act. He has to kick this diplomat out. Even if the CSIS intelligence is incorrect, I think the optics are terrible. Kick the diplomat out, worry about the consequences later. And we do know, remember, as Andrew Scheer said earlier on the show, as Katie Telford testified in her, to the committee, the Prime Minister sees everything and reads everything. So if this was put in front of him, presumably he read it.